There is so much material on leadership out there, and I'm not claiming to be the leadership authoritarian here, but I have a view. It's a simple one, and I'd like to share it. There's a switch that you can flick to more closely occupy the leader's role and more effectively. Before we get into that, let's talk quickly about what doesn't make for a good leader. Leaders are not striving to be subject experts. They've moved on from being in the deep bowels of detail to a wider angle view of the world. Leaders are not focused on tasks, but on outcomes. They generally won't be heavily involved in the day-to-day for prolonged periods of time. Leaders are not bothered by obstacles, so when they hear a lot of people telling them this is a problem and this is a risk and this is going to block us and we can't get over this hump, they'll usually be thinking about whether this is an actual blocker, or if it's a real blocker, who can I pull in to help me overcome this? Because you know what? The ship is sailing. We're navigating forward and we're not stopping. So a leader is setting or resetting strategy. They are building a vision and they can communicate that vision very, very clearly. They make sure their people are engaged, they're happy and they're comfortable. Comfortable people give you their best work. But they also bring their people on the journey by inspiring them with the amazing articulation and the navigational execution that's pragmatic, that's logical, that's directionally sound, which all sounds wonderful. So this kind of entices people, inspires them and motivates them to come along on the journey. They also have good intuition and good foresight and can preempt what's ahead and sort of see it ahead of everybody else. They actually take lots of advice. So they'll leverage the mind of their team rather than the single mind of an individual. So while the team is thinking about activity, the leader is thinking about the value of that activity. The leader will typically not fight every battle, and there are lots of battles to be fought. There are daily battles. So the leader has a lot of confidence in decision making, and they take accountability and own the consequences of their and their team's actions. That's why they're busy getting so much advice and recommendations from their specialists and their broader teams, because they've got to transform that into information that's going to be useful for their decision making. And so they'll be accountable for the decisions that are actually made. The good leader will stand back when the team actually does really, really well, and they'll lift the team and elevate them as opposed to taking the spotlight. Drum roll. Leaders ask questions. Specialists provide answers. Leaders are disabled without information, so they ask questions that are leading in nature to uncover a story, questions that open up possibilities, questions that get to the root cause rather than look at symptoms, questions that bring teams together, questions that bring stakeholders together, questions that eliminate division, questions that bring good, sound outcomes that are pleasing to customers and to shareholders and to other stakeholders. So conversion from being a specialist to being a leader is a conscious decision. So if you're aspiring to become a leader, ask more questions, especially ones that begin with how can we? And more importantly, know what to do with the answers. But you've got to make sure that you're asking the right questions, because if you ask the wrong questions, even if you get the right answer, you're on the wrong path at outset. There's a lot more to cover on leadership, so much more. So I think we're going to do that again. Yeah, well, I think definitely going to do that again. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Bye. Flick the switch. And if you want to flick the switch, blah, 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 the switch, if you want to flick, and if you want to flick, if you want to, and if you want to flick, that's not a flick, that's a click.